the second portion of the show. But right now we want to take a brief break. You're listening to My Hometown on 90.3 WHPC. We'll be right back after this brief intermission.
Do I want Italian or Chinese for dinner?
Should I wear the black shirt or the red dress today?
Should I go on a date with Rebecca or Allison tonight? Or maybe Jessica? Definitely Jessica. Or Christina? There's just too many choices.
Life sometimes gives you too many choices, like the choice you have to make when you want to hear some great music on your phone. Luckily, we've made that choice easy for you. Download the TuneIn app today and search for WHPC. Listen to WHPC on the go, wherever you are. Catch the retro mix weekdays, maybe some Italian or Haitian culture weeknights, and a whole lot more on the weekend. We give you so many choices, it's literally impossible to get bored.
Or I could text Melissa and see what she's doing tonight. Or Jennifer. Oh, I can't forget about Stephanie. Oh, but then there's Jackie.
Hey, we can't tell you who to date, but we can strongly suggest that you listen to the voice of Nassau Community College. Online at ncc.edu/WHPC or on your phone with the TuneIn app. Keyword WHPC.
My Hometown is made possible by Herald Community Newspapers. For more local news, visit liherald.com. Got a story to tell? Call 516-569-4000.
WHPC. And now we return to My Hometown.
Welcome back to My Hometown. I'm your host, Bill Horan, and today we're speaking to Warren Hoffman. Warren is the owner of Divorce Separation Mediation Services of Long Island Limited. Warren, can you give us the benefits and if there are any detriments of mediation rather than hiring private attorneys?
There are aspects to it that are not positive, so let me just cover those. When you have a couple where there are certain issues that are really not well suited for mediation, there aren't very many of them. But if the parties have a true custody battle where they're fighting over with whom the children are going to primarily reside, that's really something. If they're willing to talk about it, that's fine. But if they're both dug their heels in and both say the children are going to live with me and not you, and they're not willing to relent on that, it's really not appropriate. The only other area is where one spouse has a substantial portion of their income that's unreported income, and the other spouse isn't aware of it. If they both know what the incomes are, we can deal with it. But one spouse says, well, I know my husband makes, $400,000 a year, and their tax return says 25. I don't know where it is, how he does it, where he hides it. I have no idea. And the husband's not willing to be forthcoming with that information. Then that's probably a problem also, because we don't have the same tools in mediation we do in litigation about depositions and trials and subpoenas and all those types of things. Those are probably the two only areas that are troublesome.
Is it fair to ask about the cost? I never like to put anybody on the spot, but the cost of mediation as opposed to if you were to take it through trial and go to court.
Absolutely. And since I do both, it's easy for me to contrast the two. My retainer in a non-mediation setting, in a litigation setting, is they start off by paying me an upfront retainer and I apply an hourly rate against it. My retainer is, when I say thousands, $10,000 plus just to get started, plus an hourly rate applied against that. Very rarely do people end up resolving their matrimonial issues just with the initial retainer itself. It just goes on and on and on, and it's kind of the nature of the litigation process, and it just costs a lot of money. In mediation, we do it one of two ways. We started out doing it hourly, just like litigation, but over the years, doing this 25 years as having this company, a lot of people came to us and they just really want to know up front, what is this going to cost me? If you buy a car, you know what it costs. You don't know in litigation, you don't know with the lawyers what it's really going to cost. So we started changing the process and the cost structure to have a fixed fee now. So if people come to us, we have a sliding scale fixed fee that ranges between as low as $5,000 and as high as $8,000, which is a tremendously large sum of money. And it really is. It's not cheap. Getting divorced is not cheap. But you're going to pay 3, 4 plus times that in litigation. And don't forget, in mediation, you have one attorney, one mediator, one process. So you are paying one fee. In litigation, you're paying two separate attorneys a lot more money. You're talking about 4, 5, 6 times the amount. So we do it on a fixed fee basis. If someone wants an hourly rate, we'll do it. For the most part, we charge a fixed amount of money that they know when they come to us exactly what this is going to cost.
Warren, let me ask you, and not to be light about it, but can they do a test drive, or do you even recommend that? Let's say two people aren't bitter, but maybe they are fighting. There's disputes. Obviously they're getting divorced. Does it hurt to come in? You said the first consultation is free. Does it hurt to sit down and talk to you and see if there's room to make this go? Or is that better to get their own attorneys and fight about it? Or what would you advise them?
Certainly. It's a great idea just to come in, just to sit down and test the waters. As you said, people come in, they learn what the laws are about from me. When I meet with private clients, there are laws, but the laws aren't very stringent. There's a lot of flexibility. So I'll amend the laws, I'll play with the laws and stretch the laws a little bit to meet my clients' needs. That I do in litigation. But in mediation, we're very, very straightforward. We explain what the laws are. We tell them how it's applied. So when you walk out of there, you know what the laws are. You also know where your husband or your wife is in their train of thought. Are they thinking that this is going to be an issue? That's not an issue. And it doesn't cost anything. So between getting an education about the law and finding out where your spouse's head is at on these different issues, it's a really good idea to come in for consultation.
And to our audience, I was complimenting Warren during the break. Sitting here across from him, although I've known him for years, he has a very authoritative yet compassionate and understanding attitude. And I think he's one of those people who are perfectly suited for being in divorce mediation, because he seems to, he certainly understands the laws on it, but he also seems to understand the party's interest and working it out for the best interest of everybody. So I don't think it hurts to come in and talk to you or someone in your field who does this, and perhaps giving this a try. And again, I'd like our audience to know our guest is Warren Hoffman. He's an attorney, but he's also the owner of Divorce Separation Mediation Services of Long Island Limited. And unfortunately, if you think you need his services, where can they find you?
The best way is probably scheduling an appointment through our office at 516-746-0868, or coming to our office at 600 Old Country Road, Suite 302 in Garden City.
You're right above that Ruth Chris Steakhouse, right? So if nothing else, then go down and have a steak afterwards.
Absolutely.
So, no, it's an easy way to find you, and you're kind of centrally located there. Now, all laws still apply, right? I mean, this is not getting around the law. Mediation doesn't cheat any law or anything like that. Is that correct?
It's exactly the same in mediation or litigation, and being a litigation attorney myself, I have to stay on top of the laws. So as any law changes in any respect, I'm always on top of it. So the laws we apply in mediation are always the laws that are current at that time.
Now, they're entering into an agreement, but obviously you're not a judge. You're not pretending to be a judge, not even the Yankee judge who sits out in the outfield now and hits home runs all the time. Is this enforceable? I mean, it's nice that they have an agreement, but is this, if one says, oh, pooey, I don't like this anymore 3 years from now, I don't want to be paying you $1,000 a month or something. Where does this fit into the bigger picture of the courts and law and divorce law?
This is exactly the same as having two separate attorneys. You just have one mediator doing it. So what happens is that they sign an agreement. It could be a divorce agreement, and it could be a separation agreement with us, just like you would if you went to a private attorney. After the agreement is signed, that agreement plus some other paperwork gets submitted to a Supreme Court judge to be signed, and the people are legally divorced if we sign a judgment of divorce, or they sign a separation agreement and separated. There is absolutely no difference in going to mediation and going to a private attorney. The end result will be exactly the same, a legally enforceable agreement and a legally enforceable court order.
Just to oversimplify it, it almost sounds like this would come under both divorce and contractual law. And not to be silly, but if I hired you to do a job around my house, to paint my house, okay? And even though you're an attorney and a very good one, you say, well, you got to pay me my average rate or whatever. So I'm paying you $200 an hour to paint my house. That's the agreement. And you're going to paint the front door, whatever color, etc. Is this kind of what they're doing? They're entering into an agreement between the husband and wife to divide up certain things, to specify custody, etc.?
They are, but this is a very, very complicated, lengthy agreement. My mediation agreement is identical to my litigation agreement. So if I'm going to court and I settle a case, it's the same as mediation settling a case. You're talking about an agreement that ranges between 50 and 70 pages long. And lawyers typically say we deal with possibilities, not probabilities. So we deal with every possibility. Things that might go wrong that they don't anticipate are all encompassed in the agreement.
And no, that part is really great, but the people themselves are determining their future, as we said earlier in the show, as you said. they're not leaving it up to a judge who maybe didn't have a great burrito for breakfast this morning, or maybe she didn't have a good lunch and she's a little grouchy and says, that's it, I've determined this and you've got to live with it. This way the people can determine what their future can hold. And even if it's a little give on one side and take on the other, it seems to be a win-win.
Absolutely. And what's also important is the enforceability later on when you have to live through an agreement that you yourself devised as opposed to it being forced upon you by a judge. People are much more likely to live up to what it says because they've made that agreement themselves.
And the magic word, if you didn't hear it before, or words, was that Warren said, if you're concerned about the expense of a divorce, which we have to say it is expensive, this is much less expensive, and it's also a bit friendlier, if there is such a way to express it. How about other parties involved in divorce? You've seen this, and how does it affect those parties, and who are they?
Well, yeah, obviously you have the husband and wife, and they're going to get their divorce, but there are a lot of other people that are affected by it, especially children primarily. Everybody has, a lot of people have stories about their parents getting divorced when they were younger, and it still stays with them as they get older, and they remember the bitterness and the mom saying to me, don't like dad says don't like mom, and all these types of things. So children are really affected in litigation when you don't do mediation. They, like I said before, they have their own attorney appointed by the court, and they get so affected. So that really affects the children. Also, they very often are grandparents of the children or parents of the litigants who are daycare workers and help the children out, and they're affected by it. And it's just so many people that get affected by this whole process, all of which really is eliminated when they make their own agreement through mediation.
And I guess the grandparents, they're kind of the loving bystanders who get hurt, if unfortunately through no fault of their own.
And they're ones typically who pay for this process when you go into litigation, and it's going to cost you $50,000, $60,000, $80,000, $100,000. And those are not rare examples. That's pretty common in litigation. It's very often the parents who are paying for these things because the parties themselves can't afford to.
Warren, you've given us a fantastic summary today. I would like to let our audience know again, our guest is Warren Hoffman. He is an attorney, but he is also president of the Divorce, Separation, Mediation Services of Long Island Limited. And unfortunately, if you're in the position where divorce seems to be on the horizon or might be coming up, I don't think you can get hurt talking to him, and you can certainly learn a lot and perhaps save a lot of money and a lot of stress on your family. Once again, tell us where that office is real quick.
Thanks, Bill. It's Warren Hoffman, and it's Divorce Mediation Services of Long Island, 516-746-0868, and it's 600 Old Country Road, Suite 302 in Garden City.
And it's right above Ruth Chris's restaurant. If you forget all that fancy address and phone numbers, you can just go to Ruth Chris and go to the third floor and find Warren. Warren, thanks for being with us today. And thank you to our audience for listening to My Hometown on 90.3 WHPC.
We like to get your feedback on My Hometown. Send your comments to whpc@ncc.edu. My Hometown is produced by Jim Green, executive producer. Nassau Community College, where success starts and continues. Till next time, this is Bill St. James. And remember, there's no town like your hometown.